process, speaking with Nate Smith. So Nate, that being said, so a lot of folks know you from like either Betty Carter or they know you from Wolfpack. They know you from all the different things, situations that you've been in. So how do you keep your own sound? Because a lot of times those situations can overwhelm a drummer, especially.
Yeah.
But you've always been able to sound like Nate Smith. How do you do that?
Man, I'm really grateful for the divergent group of people I've played with, because I think playing with a lot of different people, it kind of shows you the thing that runs through your playing.
Yeah.
Like I think all the years that I was in New York and all the different people I played with, I started to understand why people were calling me, because there was a sound that I got from the drums that they thought was unique and they thought served their music. So that's the thing that I learned. I was like, okay, no matter what I'm playing, who I'm playing with, that's the sound they want. There's a thing that I do with language between the snare drum and the hi-hat and the bass drum that they really like. There's a way that I play straight eighth note grooves or swung grooves that they really like. And so there was this thing I could kind of find in my playing that turned out to be uniquely mine, and I can continue to develop it. That I think playing with a lot of different people is actually what taught me that. Going through all those, from Near Felder to Jose James to Somi, Robbie Coltrane, all those different people, there was a dynamic thing that they all required in the music. And there was a spectrum of color that they all required. And they all also required me to infuse information from different genres. Like with Near, sometimes some of Near stuff was straight rock,
Right.
So playing that music was really important. And a lot of that was developed playing with Dave Holland, Chris Potter, night after night. Chris Potter's Underground Band was a hugely developmental band for me. Hugely developmental, yeah.
Why is that?
Well, it was the first band that I've ever been in that was created with me in mind. When Chris put the band together, he had the people he wanted in mind. And it was like, I want this from Adam Rogers. I want this from Wayne Krantz. I want this thing from Craig Taborn. And Nate will give me this as this, like, sort of this undergird of like groove that can kind
of... Like a Miles setup.
Yeah,
so kind of. It was like Miles set up with a certain sound he had in mind.
Wow. Absolutely. He designed the group with a certain sound in mind, And every other group I've been in, I've come in after another drummer who had his own thing, coming into Dave Holland's band after Billy Kilson. He's an incredible drummer, and he was a huge part of the sound of that band.
Yeah.
So, I tried my best to bring my own flavor to the music, but that music existed before I joined. Chris created Underground with us in mind, and I think that was a huge vote of confidence for me.
Speaking with Nate Smith, so Nate, it was kind of cool seeing you. I'm not gonna lie, seeing you with Brittany Howard.
Yeah, yeah.
And just seeing you on the stage there and watching you in that world. I mean, because a lot of folks in our world, the jazz world, are like, "What's they doing that? What's he doing?" I'm like, "He's working."
yeah. But I mean, Brittany, man, there is. I'm really grateful to work with her, because there's a lot of pop gigs out in the world.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of ways, a lot of people, that would maybe call you for a gig that you think, okay, well, I have to really stretch to kind of go into this thing, to fit into this thing. But with Brittany, one of the things I love about Brittany, again, I was a part of making the record. So she had me in mind from the beginning of the process.
I was asking, how'd you get that call? Because I thought that was such an ingenious thing to ask you for that call. So how did that even come about?
Oh man, it was cold. It was from her manager emailed me out of the blue. This was summer of 2018.
Wow.
I got, and what was really interesting is that for the whole year before that, I had been listening to Sound and Color nonstop. Yeah, I had been listening to that record nonstop, just loved every minute of it. And so I got this email from her manager, and I of course jumped at the chance. I really admire her, So went out to LA. I did 2 weeks in the studio with her, and of course got to like watch her work and get to know her a little bit. And then when the record was done, that's when she was like, I really want to take this band on the road, and I really think a big part of this record is the way Nate sounds on the record. So when she called me to do it, I I thought about it long and hard because I thought, okay, this is my first like legitimate like rock gig, you know.
Yeah.
There's very little jazz information in this. So but even on stage every night, you know, I think the thing that's cool about Brittany is even though she, you know, we're playing songs that are, you know, from the record, she's open. She's very open to ideas, you know? And so the band sounds a lot different now than it sounded when we first started touring. And when we start touring in the fall, I think we're gonna start touring in the fall again. I look forward to the music opening up even more.
Oh man, speaking of Nate Smith. You know what's funny, Nate? One night somebody whispered in my ear, said that you are our Steve Gadd. And at first, and I'm like, I knew what he meant because he was saying that you can create the frame in any situation. So whether it's a rock gig, a blues gig, a country gig,
yeah,
like Steve could and Steve does, you could do the same thing. You have, and just maybe when you mentioned that, it just made me think of that quote somebody said one night.
Yeah, man, you know, that's a very high compliment. Obviously, I think Steve is, you know, for me, there's a, in my mind, a Mount Rushmore of drummers.
Yeah.
From that time period, and by that time period, I mean the golden age of instrumental R&B, pop, jazz,
sure,
that straddled all the different, you know, genres, you know, and so Steve is definitely on that list. Omar Hakim is on that list. Harvey Mason's on that list. And then, you know, obviously, Dennis Chambers, a little bit later, is on that list too, even though he was very young at the time doing that.
Oh, yeah.
I just think that there is a real, and so any comparison to any of those drummers is a huge honor. You know what I mean? I remember seeing video. I didn't get a chance to see it live, but video of Steve Gadd playing with Chick Corea, God bless him, at the Blue Note a couple years back when Chick did his long residency.
Right.
And even in Chick's band, you know, and Chick, he did a different project every week. So Marcus Gilmore one week, Dave Weckl one week, and Steve Gadd. And even in that band, he always sounds like Gadd. You know, he always sounds like himself, and he always gives the music what it needs. My favorite drummers do that. Brian Blade does that. You know, Mark Juliana does that. Steve Jordan does that. He's another one of those guys who's on Mount Rushmore for me.
Absolutely.
You know, so yeah, I'm thrilled at that comparison. You know,
I thought I'd give you some notes from the field.
Right. Appreciate it.
Speaking with Nate Smith. So Nate, what a couple of projects I want to ask about. So the new project that just came out, discuss that a little bit in terms of, because it's so cool hearing drummers write. Yeah. A lot of times they get the perception of maybe they can just do this, but it's so awesome that you can again disprove this myth that drummers just play drums. You can write and write well. So discuss that whole project. It's so exciting to hear.
Oh, thank you, man. Thank you. Yeah, Light and Shadow, it's almost been a year since it's been out. Hard to believe, but I was kind of in a place where I really wanted to write something that felt kind of cinematic, you know, and I really wanted to write for strings. And I knew the players; they were all kind of in and around New York, and they had worked. Some of them had worked on the first Kinfolk record.
Right.
So when I started writing these ideas, I was like, man, I really just want to make it sound as transparent as possible. So when we recorded it with just piano and strings first, and then everything else I would layer on top, you know. And there was only one song that I recorded the rhythm tracks first, and then we overdubbed the strings. But everything else with the strings we recorded just with piano and strings, and then all the drums and percussion were added later, because I really just wanted to hear what the music sounded like as it was, you know, recording. And you know, I'm a huge fan of, I think of like, when I think of the great drummer composers, I think of Max Roach. I think of, you know, even my brother Kendrick Scott. I think he's a fantastic composer, you know. And I know that there are so many more. And I think that we have to, you know, drummers, I mean, Antonio Sanchez is a great composer. You know, there are so many drummers out here who are really great multidimensional musicians. But I think you're right. There is a myth that, you know, the drummer in the back of the stage does one thing and serves one purpose. But there's so much more music in us, you know. But yeah, that was really what that record was about. And also it was heavily inspired by Quincy Jones records from the late 70s, early, his pre-Thriller, you know, all that stuff's great too, but his pre-Thriller albums under his own name.
Like The Dude, like stuff like that.
Dude, Smackwater Jack, all those records, man.
Yeah.
And his film scores too are incredible.
Body Heat,
Um,
yeah.
Oh man. And then back in 2002, I got a chance to work in this studio in Philly. And the great string arranger Larry Gold runs that room.
Yeah.
And I got to watch Larry work. And I just would, every record that came out of that studio that he put strings on, I would buy just to listen to his arrangement, you know. So that I hope that some of that information comes through in that music.